Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me tonight on a very special edition of Spanning the Need with Anthony Spano, Mayoral Candidate Speaker Series presented by Sherman Creative. During this speaker series, we'll be discussing issues with all the candidates for mayor's race for the City of Youngstown, both Democratic and Republican candidates for the primary that's going to be on May 4th. Let's get things started tonight, and we'll be talking with the Mayor of the City of Youngstown right now and mayoral candidate, Mayor Brown. Mayor, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
Well, it's always good to see you. We've known each other for a long time, so um, if people don't know you, tell people about yourself, and so people kind of know your background and your career, where you are and got to where you are now.
First of all, the one thing I'm very proud for of that is I'm born and bred. I'm a Youngstown native. I was born and raised here. I was educated here. Both went to Youngstown City Schools. Graduated from the Rand School, and I always have to say that, Tony, because that gets me in a lot of room. And I hold both my bachelor's and my master's degree from Youngstown State University. And I most recently actually got an honors degree from Youngstown State, an honors doctor. So I got a JD
So,
in
so it's
law.
Dr. Brown?
Yeah, it can be. Depends on what room I'm in. I'll sometime I'll get in there. But usually when I'm in a room with attorneys, they can sniff me out really well. They know it's not a real law degree. So um, I'm a father of four. I'm raising all my children here. I've been married to my wife, Lynette, for the past, it'll be 17 years this year. We
Wow! Congratulations.
have two girls, two boys. And most of my career has been in public service. You know, one of the things that I'm realizing and understanding is that I guess for me, it was about how do I give back to this community, to the place I call home. And it's what's helped me span my career. I've been on a school board. I've been a city councilman. I've been a president of council, and I've been a mayor. And I'm not sure that you can find too many other individuals have served on all four. There used to be one or two of us that were school board members as well as city council members, but now president of council as well as mayor. And Tony, the one thing that's a bright shining light for me is that I'm a grandfather. My granddaughter is just turned 3 on Friday. So um, I've worked in, I was a case manager for children's service for some time. I was a community organizer for Youngstown State University. I went on to work at the Mahoney County Treasurer's Office, where I was the deputy treasurer. And I served on the Human Relations Commission for the City of Youngstown, MyCap as well. So we've had an array of places that we've participated to volunteer and to be a part of. MVSD, I was a board member in MVSD as well. So that is a little bit about my professional career, my educational background, and now I'm serving. This is my 4th year in my first term as mayor of the City of Youngstown.
Now we've been, well, as you probably can know, we're kind of in the middle of a pandemic, and with the election just passed from presidentials and some additional things. Why do you feel that you're the best candidate to be reelected as mayor?
Tony, the one thing you just mentioned is the pandemic. We've been leading through this global pandemic for over a year. When we got the notice from the governor and his team to let us know the first case that hit the state of Ohio, I immediately came together and collectively put together a team. And we've been working. We started with public access to City Hall, reducing that, but also we made sure we start informing and educating individuals on what we needed to do. We were actively, or still actively, right now, we're twice a week with the governor and his team working on the various aspects of this pandemic. What I want to make sure is that we just don't survive this pandemic. I want to make sure that we thrive coming out of this pandemic. And that means that we're going to make sure that anybody who wants to get the vaccination, minorities specifically, because they're the most vulnerable. And Tony, I was actually appointed by the governor for his minority task force during this global pandemic because of the work that we're doing here in the City of Youngstown and making sure the most vulnerable actually will have an opportunity, then COVID test, and now the vaccination. So right now I'm leading a minority vaccination coalition. And this is really how we're going to make sure that individuals who want the shot can get the shot, but also making sure that we give them the facts over the fear, because there's a fear about the shot right now. So I am the only candidate right now that's been leading through this global pandemic. I'm the chair of the Youngstown Health Board as well. But I think I mentioned about not just surviving, but thriving. Most recently, I was a witness. I testified at the Senate banking hearing on the COVID relief. And the things we talked about was making sure that people could have a better life and a quality life when they come outside of this pandemic. We focused on jobs, small business, transit, but we also talked about mortgage rental assistance. So I've been advocating at the federal, the state, and at the local level during this pandemic.
Well, and I don't think anyone would this pandemic has hit everyone, from the people that food and a lot of different things and stuff like that. Is, if reelected, what does that first 90 days look like? What are the most important things in your plans for the first 90 days to continue your term?
So the first 90 days, Tony, we'll be still somewhere dealing with the pandemic. So we need to make sure that people are ready, workforce ready. That's going to be a big piece, because many of the jobs that were there prior to the pandemic are not there now. But there's some future jobs that are coming, and I can consistently say that we want a livable wage jobs for individuals, but we need to make sure the workforce is ready. So two things I want to focus on. I want to make sure the workforce is ready. So we need the job trained, job ready, but they have to have job access. And when I say that, I mean that we are working with Youngstown State, Eastern Gateway Community College, Flying High. We want to make sure that individuals who want jobs, the livable wage jobs, that they're trained and they're ready to do so. But the other thing that we've not done well as a city over the years, we need to make sure we have ready-made sites, work sites are ready. When Amazon came looking for locations, we didn't have enough acreage to make sure that we can compete. Other places across Ohio, they have ready-made sites, and that's one of my goals, to make sure that we have the workforce that's ready for the 21st century jobs. But also, we need to have work site ready locations, and that means when they come, I need 5 acres, we have it ready. We need 10 acres, we have it ready. The problem in the city is that we're kind of landlocked, so we have to work through that. And my team, we've been working and developing since I've taken on to become mayor. As mayor, we've made sure that if there's land, we'll take it into our land bank, but we're working to assemble it so it makes sense. And definitely those that are close to freeway access, we want to make sure that's ready as well. Tony, what I want to make sure that you hear this, and the viewers hear this. Coming in the future, there'll be renewable energy jobs. We need to make sure that we're ready for the wind, the solar, and electric. The electric battery and the electric plant out in Lordstown is a great catalyst for us. But we need to make sure that during the Biden administration, they want to pour money into renewable energy. I'm a part of a 8-mayor consortium where we're focused on the Marshall Plan. And we talk about, if we do nothing about renewable energy, we'll lose 100,000 jobs. But if we start training and making sure that we're ready, we'll gain 400,000 jobs. So that's my goal, is to really make sure that when we're talking about, Youngstown, places like Pittsburgh, Dayton, I'm at the table with those mayors to ensure that the Youngstown residents, when the offset of the batteries or making the batteries, that they're trained and ready for those jobs that are coming.
We talk about trying to bring jobs to the area, or try to the city, because we all know that depending on what city, it flows into the community itself, because city's the vibrant of the community. And in the last month or two, there's been a lot of talk about economics and everything like that. How would you create a vibrant economy in the city? You talked a little bit about land bank and some acreage. How do you really make it vibrant?
Well, first of all, if you're an employer and you're looking, you want to make sure that that location is competitive. You're not going to come and have to train those workers. You need to make sure that all who are working are ready, but you got to make it attractive. You've got to make sure that people don't want to come into a toxic environment. And Tony, when I took over as mayor, we started focusing on making sure that the reputation in the city of Youngstown was one that we made sure that people knew that you don't have to pay anybody, you don't have to owe anybody, you don't have to know anybody. If you want to do business in the city of Youngstown, that we're open for business. So that was the one thing that we still actively have to talk about and through, because I'm still meeting people like, oh, you're the mayor of Youngstown. We were gonna come there. We were gonna come there. And I say, well, what was the issue? Why you didn't? Well, let's just say it didn't work out. And ultimately, what we're finding out is that, in the past, in previous years in administrations, there were strong arm tactics. That's not the case under my administration. Youngstown's open for business. And I tell what we're seeing now, Tony, we're seeing a lot more of our local investors investing more dollars, but we're getting some outside investors that are sniffing around to say, hey, there's something going on in Youngstown, and we want to make sure that maybe we want to be a part of that. But here's the bigger piece that we're working on that I think is going to make it a very good, successful piece for us. We're building partnerships that we didn't have, and we're strengthening the ones that we did have. We're working with cities and townships right now in just in this valley. You know, at one time we were not speaking to those cities because we didn't play well in a sandbox from the city side. Now under my administration, we're working on corridor opportunities with Boardman, Austintown, Camel. So we're making sure all of those surrounding where we connect with corridors, we're making sure that we can work together in a great fashion to attract those business here.
Well, and we talked a little bit about the economics right now, where with the pandemic, you got a lot going on. There's so many moving parts. Okay. And say you're reelected, we're moving towards getting out of the pandemic back to, as people call, normal.
Mm-hmm.
What is one of your very first things that you want to change immediately that you haven't been able to change in the past because of the pandemic?
You know what, Tony? I don't think the pandemic has been restrictive of what we wanted to do. I think the $88.6 million that we recently received from the federal government to come outside for the city of Youngstown will be a great catalyst for us. We want to take those dollars and put it back into the community, but I want to make sure that it is ready. It's ready for the people. When I say that, I want to make sure that we're investing this, that it's a legacy opportunity for us. This is going to be it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for us. And I am privileged and honored to be the mayor that over the last year, I've been advocating with cities across the nation and across the state to say that we needed this. So we need to make sure we're going to focus on infrastructure. So we're going to put union workers to work because we're going to focus on infrastructure. We're going to focus on neighborhoods so that we're going to improve the quality of life for our neighbors and our citizens. But also we're going to make it attractive because now individuals are going to see that, man, there's a great workforce. They're doing they're fixing their roads, they're fixing their sidewalks, they're fixing their lighting. Now it's the how do we treat our community is how employers look at you. So we're going to take that and really put it back into the community. But it's going to be I think that's going to be an economic catalyst for us because I want to make sure that when we're spending these dollars, we're spending it local as much as possible, but we're making sure they're union workers. So our union brothers and sisters who are maybe sitting on the sideline or may not have work, now we can offer them work as well.
And you talk about these putting money into the community and your neighborhoods. I call neighborhoods kind of the community because that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
In the last month or two, there's been a lot of shootings and violence in the last month or two. What steps do you want to take, or that you're wanting to take to curb the violence in our community?
Yeah, Tony, you know, in our community, we're no different than any other. It's ironically enough, during the pandemic, nationally, crime statistics were up. Statewide, crime statistics were up. What we're doing with my new police chief, Chief Davis, his focus is really on community policing. The reason I hired him is when we had a sit down and we talked, his focus was really making sure that we gain trust, but we also build relationships out in the community. The one thing he said, it stuck with me. He says, Mayor, I don't want to just go into the community when there's a crime. I want to be in the community when there's not a crime. So we've got to really make sure that we're building that relationship, getting our officers out of the car, knowing they're individuals who are on the beat. But also we want to make sure that you get a greater visibility when we're out there. I think it's going to take definitely both of the citizens as well as law enforcement to come together and share, but that you got to build trust. And how you build trust, you show initiative. You show that, listen, we're coming in here to help, not to be a hindrance to you. Body cams are going to be the next piece as well. We want to make sure that we're leading in the front. I had a chance to talk with Roll Call just the other day where men and women are going out. And I told them, I said, listen, I want Youngstown to be leading from the front And we're not that national narrative. We have a local narrative. And people say, well, you have problems. Everyone has problems. But
Hmm.
the issue is to what level and how we deal with it. I can honestly tell you with Chief Davis, being a 35-year vet and working in IA for internal affairs for so many years, he understands the ins and outs of, maybe some misbehaviors of officers, but he also knows how many men and women that we have professionals in law enforcement. So we're making sure. I told them that I want them to lead from the front. I want people to come in the years to come to stop by Youngstown, Ohio Police Department and say, wow, what did you guys do? And through all that's going on with the civil unrest, we want to make sure that Youngstown's leading to be a model. And also here's the other piece. We're making sure that they're a model, but we're making sure that we're leading in the valley as well. So our men and women are through all this time. They're the reasons that we're not a national narrative. We're a local narrative, and we want to share that with the national.
Okay, thank you. And we talk about how you talked a little bit about earlier business and what you're kind of focusing on. And we kind of look at some, like, here's an example that you have someone that wants to come in with a proposal to build a new project or business in our city. Who do you trust to evaluate whether that project is worth implementing?
Well, it would actually, it depends on what they want to do, because we have zoning appeals, board of zoning appeals there. That's really where you start talking about if it's if you can do it in that area, the zoning will tell you. If it can't be, then you have to ask for a variance. So that's the first step. I think also individuals, when they implement it, needs to know that it works for the community. Sometimes we saturate ourselves with too many of one type of business. We want to make sure it's diversified, but I also want to make sure it's inclusive. And when business owners are coming in, I want to make sure it's inclusive with minorities, city residents. So there's multiple factors, and I think just looking at their proposal, and we hear it all the time. Individuals that want to come in. I sit on the board of zoning and appeals as well. I hear great proposals, and individuals, they ask for variance, and a lot of times they'll give it to them. One of the things we're realizing, Tony, is that people want to do business in the city, and I can't stress it enough. Now that we're open for business and you don't have to pay in or know anybody, it's breaking down those barriers, and we're seeing people kind of inch out further and further to say, let me try this in Youngstown. Let me try this. So I think when you ask who would I trust, that's the first line of communication with the city. But our economic development department will definitely kind of walk you through what we call the concierge approach. We'll walk you. We focused on one person to really deal with you. You don't have. I don't want to point you to go to the fourth floor, go to the third floor, go to the second floor. I want someone to say, listen, here's the things you need. Bring them to me, and I'll make sure they get to the appropriate individuals in City Hall. So that's been our approach, and we're now even getting better, because one of the things I've taken on during this pandemic is weekly we have planning and development meetings where we focus on projects, we focus on initiatives that are outside of City Hall, and I'll ask, well, how's this project coming along? And my team, from week to week, they know, oh, I called Tony. Tony says he's talking to his partners. He'll get back with me, next week or 2 weeks, or they're ready to go. All they need to do is get a signature from X, Y, and Z. So we're really taking a hands-on approach and walking individuals through it, because far too long we would point them, hey, you go there, and you get discouraged if you have to go to too many locations. So we're really centralizing how this happened. We're going online with permits. You don't have to come to City Hall to do all of that. So that's where we're moving right now for the city. Even during the pandemic, we'll see some new restaurants and bars downtown that are still opening even during this pandemic.
So almost like a one-stop shop type scenario.
Yeah, that's what we focused on. I talked about that early on. Before I became mayor, I want that concierge approach. When you go to the hotel, what's the first person you want to see? The concierge, because they know everything you're gonna need to do, where to go, where can I get this, what's the best. So we've taken that approach with business, and when they come into the city, once we know that that's what they want to do, we're on the call, we're on the Zooms, and we follow up, and we try to walk them through the process.
And we talk a lot about business and everything. And what are some of the challenges that are paramount to you and your administration for the city of Youngstown?
You mentioned earlier, we talked about, land, having the adequate space. The mayor of Lordstown, he always teases me. He said, Mayor, you can't do what I can do. And I'm saying, how is that, Mayor? He says one of my residents can sell 5 acres and they won't even know, they won't miss it. You don't have that much land that's ready to go during that time. But also, we got to make sure that we're competitive. We've got to change the way we look at how we attract business here. First of all, we want to retain the ones we have, but also we want to attract the ones that are coming here. And we've got to have a very inviting environment. So those are some of the challenges. It does not hurt when people read or Google and they see issues about crime. It's not necessarily the crime; it's how you handle crime. And I think our approach now is really going to be a little different with the new chief and making sure that we're bringing a community approach to it. I think we'll find greater success when the communities engage and they're partners in this.
So in the last, and I'll kind of go with this, in the last 30 years, you've been around, we've both been around in a variety of different positions, and we've lost a good chunk of our population due to jobs or multiple other issues, steel mills and a lot of areas like that. For example, I was the park commissioner years ago, and we talked about doing a study to downsize our parks because the parks were ideally could serve 165,000 people, but with the population decline to where it is back then, I think it was 65, give or take, just a rough estimate.
Mhm.
Eh, what does that look like? Is it necessary to restructure city government to what the the demographic population is of a city? I'm not talking parks in general. I'm just talking as an overall picture.
I think it's overall you need to make sure that you adapt to the times. Where we probably one of my philosophies and my staff will tell you, we work leaner, we work smarter and harder with less. And I think that's going to be the thing in government we're going to have to realize. And Tony, when I took on this job, we were facing a deficit. And one of the things I did right away is I brought a consultant in to kind of look at our finances, look at where we are. And he talked about FTEs, reducing the numbers. And so we've been aggressive about working on an attrition plan. But during the attrition, you got to make sure that we're still not affecting the service. We want to still deliver the same service to the citizens. So we want to make sure, first of all, we're providing a service to the citizens that they're accustomed to. And if we have to downsize internally with numbers, we're cross training. Individuals will learn more than just one job. It's not, well, I only do this job. No, how about you do this, this, and that job? Even the mayor, I tell anybody there's nothing above my pay grade or below my pay grade that I won't do if I have to step in. We're instituting a 311 system now that we're focused on, and we talk about quality of life. One of the things I think what happens is people make a call, and you don't know what happened to your call. So now the 311 will track the call. If you got tires, it'll let you know that the order was received, someone's out to pick up, or it did not get. No one picked up your order. The order's in the backlog. And what happens? Typically, it will push it up the ladder. And lastly, if it gets to my office, which it should not, and then we have to figure out what happened to it. So it's just better quality service using technology. Technology is going to be huge for us. It's going to be a big thing for us to realize. But I think we're going to have to be, realistic. When the 2010 plan looked and said, we got to be, we're a shrinking city. Let's be that city. And government really we have to realize that, how do we continue to provide the adequate service and the quality service that the citizens are accustomed to, but also how do we figure out, to live within our means? My philosophy has been very clear to my staff when we go to budget. Don't come with your wants. Make sure you come with just your needs. So for the last 3 budget cycles, we've been ended in the black, and we were facing the millions and millions of dollars a deficit. That's because we've been able to take it and take on that financial barrier that was there. And now we ended this year in a surplus. And most recently, we're going to see this $88.6 million revenue replacement because of advocacy and for us to be, we've been great stewards of the dollar. So I'm thankful for my staff, and it was different for them, Tony. They were used to just coming with a grocery list of, hey, in equipment, we're going to do this, and this. We actually went to what we call outcome based. We realized, we backed it out. Take all your equipment out. Let's talk about personnel and service first. Then we'll talk about equipment. And in that model, we're starting to replace our snow plows. We've probably about a half a dozen of new snow plows, which had not been looked at for 10 years. And now you're seeing less calls about service because we're getting the newer ones, the larger ones. We're doing what the state's doing with brine, and we can really treat the roads. So we're becoming modernized, but it's because we've been very good stewards of the city's finance.
And I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know there's a lot going on and everything like that, and kind of educating the viewers of what's going on and some of your thoughts and suggestions on what you look forward to the city of Youngstown. So I'll give you last words.
You know what? I always love the last words, no matter who it is, Tony. Tony, let me first say thank you, man, for taking this time. This is I love doing this, and I tell people a lot of times when you get in government, you just kind of go. You kind of go do your job every 2 weeks, get your pay, but we don't tell our story enough. And thank you for allowing us to tell our story. And one of the things that I didn't get a chance to talk about the next 90 days after election, when you talked about neighborhoods and the quality of life, and we talked about making sure that we're going to put those monies in a neighborhood. We're focused on what we call impact zones. We don't want to take the shotgun approach anymore, and it's where you have one service, one fix here, one fix there. We're going to create impact zones where we're going to go into one neighborhood geographically located, and we're going to focus on not just the infrastructure, but the people. We're going to make sure the health of the people coming out of the pandemic. We're going to have our social service partners with us. They're going to be out there. Law enforcement is going to be out there. Code enforcement is going to be out there. So, and our economic development is going to be out there in those communities. So those are the things I want to focus on. And as mayor, I took on this job 4 years ago, Tony. And one of the things I remain consistent with is that I wouldn't cave to money, power, or politics. And I've remained steadfast at doing so. And my main goal is to put the citizens of Youngstown first. So I'm hoping the voters will seek for me to get another 4 years. We've come so far, but we have so much more work to do. And I'm excited about the future and the potential of the city of Youngstown. So if the voters will have me again, I'm asking them to go out and vote May 4th, Mayor Tito Brown for the mayor of the city of Youngstown.
I appreciate you taking time. And at the end of all my podcasts, I like to ask some fun questions if you're interested in having a little fun for a couple minutes.
That's who I am, Tony.
Yeah. So any answer can be personal or professional. There's no right or wrong answer. So these questions may be harder than the ones I probably just asked. What is your best accomplishment?
Being a father.
Okay.
That truly is the best thing that I've ever had to do. Tony, real quick, I was a teenage father at 17. That grew me and that matured me. And I am the man I am today because of being a father of 4, 2 girls, 2 boys. So that is my greatest accomplishment, being a father.
Okay, nothing wrong with that. Best memory.
But my best memory is my mother and I went to the World's Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we went down on a bus. A group of her friends. My mother worked at the Y for 30 years, and a group of the people from the Y were going to go down, and she thought, well, let's go to the World's Fair. And that was a once in a lifetime opportunity. I can't find too many people that went to the World's Fair, and it's still ingrained in my mind. I probably was 8 or 9, Tony. So that was almost 40 years ago.
Almost like that occasion of where were you at this time in history?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
What's your best experience? Because I think we experience a lot in life.
My best experience is really dealing with people. When I worked for Children's Service, that was my best experience, Tony, because you were the help for the people. You were the front line. You got a chance to see people in the most vulnerable state, but you had a chance to see them come past that. And when I would work, I was in the family service unit, and you get a case. It's been the intake, and we've identified there's some issues. Tony, you would get into some of these homes and you realize that, you know what, I am their only option, or the option for them to either keep their children or to get their children back in their home. And we worked as a family, and many of those families I still right now have a relationship with. Many of those kids would want to, from our group, if we had them in a group home, they would come home and want to play with my son. But that's been my best experience. I say if you take a social worker and put them anywhere, they can survive because they understand that. So being a social worker, through and through in my heart, has been my greatest experience.
And backing that up, I've actually served on the Mahoning County Children's Services Board. I did for 8 years, and doing a ride along, it's eye opening on what you see, just not in the city of Youngstown, but just in the outer skirts of Mahoning County.
Sure.
Who's your role model?
My mother. My mother's my shero, and she's if she probably won't watch the podcast, so I can tell you this. Tony, my mother's she's never driven a day in her life, but we always managed to get to where we were. She walked to work every day when she worked for the YMCA. And I just looked at how she made sure that her African-American young male in the city of Youngstown, she told me mediocrity was not an option. There is no two-time rule for you. You can't do what everyone is doing. And she just made sure that every time that I'm doing something, that I have to put everything I want into it. I use this on my kids. Like, once you start something, you're not gonna quit. Now, maybe next year we'll revisit it, but once you sign up and you say you're gonna do something, she would not let me quit. And I use that for anything I do in my life, in my professional, my personal life, that once I start, that we won't quit. And that's been a standard for me, and that's a standard I put on my kids as well.
Yeah, we'll make sure, we'll talk to some people to try to get her to watch this. And I'll end with this. I kind of look at an overall picture of everyone who you meet or talk to in life, because we talk to a variety of people that you never know. If you could meet one person, if you could choose one person to meet, past or present, who would it be and why?
Wow. That's a list, man. That's a list to think about.
Hey, you can I've had people give me a couple. That there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer.
I think the first one I would want to meet is Martin Luther King, because he was truly a pioneer in a difficult time. And I look at the times that we're in right now. I'd be curious of how he would face the social injustice that we're facing right now. He would be one that I really want to just talk to him and get a sense of which direction he would be leaning and how he would be advocating. And the next would be my all-time favorite. It would be Muhammad Ali. There's no doubt. Cassius Clay is one of my best, and I can watch interviews from him all the time. But I just liked his personality, but I liked his community activism as well. So he just didn't do it in the ring; he did it outside the ring. And I think that's the thing I try to make sure we're not just making effective change while I'm in City Hall, but outside of City Hall as well.
Well, Mayor, I appreciate you taking time. I know you're got a busy schedule, as we mentioned earlier. Thank you for the opportunity to kind of share your thoughts and everything with the community.
Tony, thanks for having me.
Everyone, thank you for watching. Continue watching this speaker series presented by Sherman Creative every Sunday, starting now up and through April 18th. So if you want to see more podcasts, announcements, or interviews, please go to anthonyvspano.com. Stay safe and God bless everyone. Good night.